You are listening to the 5 a.m. podcast, and today is your day. Good morning, early risers and dream chasers. Welcome to another inspiring episode of the 5 a.m. podcast, where we connect with individuals who have mastered the art of seizing each day with passion and purpose. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Ahmard Vital, a man whose life's work embodies what it means to awaken potential in others. From the sports fields to international stages, Ahmard has transformed countless lives as a motivational consultant, international speaker, and acclaimed author. His journey from college football recruiting analyst to global motivational leader is a testament to follow one's calling. His book, Awaken the Baller Within, has become known as an athlete's life manual, adopted by dozens of colleges and athletic departments nationwide. While his mental performance coaching has helped secure over $6 million in scholarship funds for athletes. But his impact extends far beyond sports through That Guy Media Group. He empowers small businesses and nonprofits with strategies for excellence. His international speaking engagements have taken him from Zambia to Abu Dhabi, inspiring diverse audiences to envision possibilities beyond their current circumstances. And a warm welcome to you, the listener. As you listen and watch wherever you might be, we welcome you here. Please consider sharing this with 3 of your friends. I know that many are going to enjoy this profitable and passionate conversation. And of course, a big thanks to those of you that have left a 5-star review on your favorite podcast player. And of course, thanks to those who ventured over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast and bought us a few of those delicious virtual cups of coffee this week and last. We do appreciate all levels of support. Ahmard Vital, it is good to have you with us here today on 5 a.m. podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Michael, thank you. I'm grateful for you having me on, man.
I'm excited to have our conversation. It's great to meet you across the interwebs. Now, your origin story. Before becoming the motivational consultant, you worked as a college football recruiting analyst. And so what was that pivotal moment of your realization that led you to transition from, let's say, analyzing athletes and talent to unlocking human potential on a broader scale?
Michael, obviously I'm looking at some of the finest athletes in the world over a period of time. I did that work for nearly 10 years.
Wow.
And coming from being a sports writer since the age of, 14 years old. And so me following sports was just natural because I was a 3-sport athlete myself. And so me being a writer and being in sports, it just made too much sense. And as I went through many different avenues in my career, obviously as a photographer and obviously working for newspapers, working with college football recruiting just made too much sense. I loved college football. I played college football. And so looking at how they get the process from going from high school to college to the pros was just exciting to me. And so covering and being an analyst in that was amazing. But the interesting thing is that while I was going through that process, I was blessed, man. I had a job that I was doing very well at, where it paid for my, my basic necessities and my insurance and things. But I was at the same time working with the analyst work through Fox Sports Southwest, Rivals.com, and Dave Campbell's Texas Football. It was probably the peak of my life from an earning potential. But
Okay.
what I found is that while I was doing well financially and professionally, spiritually, I was a little bit bankrupt. And I didn't realize that until a relationship I was involved with just completely fell apart. And it broke me because I was actually trying to do the right thing for the first time in my life,
Okay.
relationship. And here we are. And so I'm actually sitting in the house that I had just bought when I had my meltdown. I was 29 years old and I
Wow.
bought the house I'm in right now. And I just remember sitting in the corner of my own house wondering what is going on with me. I'm living the American dream. And I just remember that still small voice speaking to me. And I just responded and was just like, okay, God, you know what? My way clearly is not working. If you wake me up tomorrow, then I'll do things your way. And so quickly I got into many different types of books. And I mean, while I was in the Bible, I was in other, I guess you could say secular books, Think and Grow Rich, Who Moved My Cheese,
Mm-hmm.
Inspired Destiny, all of the books that, everyone in business pretty much reads as a man
Right.
thinking.
Yes.
And I went and got someone to be my mentor, kind of spiritual advisor, and he sort of showed me the way. And while I was doing that, I realized that my personal spiritual development had taken a large part of my life. But most of my life was revolving around sports. And I was like, well, how
Hmm.
can I merge the two of them? And so Awaken the Baller Within was born. And basically, I did the same thing Napoleon Hill did with um, entrepreneurs and successful people. I did the same thing with athletes. So I'm going through these questioning, and I interviewed, close to 100 guys to understand what was the mindset behind their success. Not just you're running touchdowns, you're making tackles, you're
Uh-huh.
throwing for 400 yards, but what was the mindset behind it? What was the preparation behind it? How are you such an effective leader? And so I broke down all of those things within this book. And it was amazing because as parents saw me, as an analyst and they found
Mm-hmm.
out I wrote a book, they would obviously support me. And so
Right.
them supporting the book, when they get the book in, they read it and they're just like, this book has nothing to do with football because it was a life manual for athletes and it was
Wow.
written in a way to where athletes can get through it easily because I didn't like to read, so I made a book for
Yeah.
people who don't like to read with short chapters. And so that book led me obviously into speaking because I asked that same mentor, spiritual advisor,
Right.
hey, how do I do this? He's like, well, if you want to sell a book, you go speak about it. And
Yeah.
10 years later, here, 12 years later, here we are.
Yes. Well, that's great. Always interesting to hear about people's progression through life, through the obstacle course that is life for so many people. So you talk about this awakening moment, and then thinking to sports and athletes. Do you think there's that moment too? Maybe not. It could still be on a spiritual level, but it's that idea that, oh boy, if I really want this, I got to make some changes. And so how do athletes that think they're all that in a bag of chips, uh, maybe they've been knocked down to size or something, they've had a setback, and they're sitting like you were in that room, and they're going, man, I really did think I was amazing, but now I've got to pick myself up, and I don't know if I can do that. Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com.
Michael, you're absolutely correct. And I think any athlete of any level has gone through that moment. I mean, we know that Michael Jordan became famous because he
Yeah.
got cut from his high school basketball team.
Yeah.
Even to some degree, when LeBron left Cleveland and went to Miami, and that finals he went to with Miami, I mean, they were technically the better team, but it's just like
Yes.
there were just more things going on. And I remember I think I'd read somewhere that LeBron basically went off the grid for like 6 weeks to like 2 months and just couldn't understand why everything just fell apart. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, going back through the program, you have to reprogram and stuff. I mean, even the best among us were humbled
Yes.
because as soon as you think you're the greatest, mm, somebody's coming for you. And,
Right.
and if you have a moment, a lapse, which we all do,
Yeah.
it just brings us back down to our knees. Like you said, maybe neither one of these guys was looking at it from a spiritual level, but there is a tie-in with that when it comes to getting
Mm-hmm.
knocked down and that level of humility that's needed to bring yourself back into a place where you're just like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm not great. What's inside of me is great. Who
Yes.
who provides for me is great. And so that's where the transition, because some of these guys may not even know that that's what they're that's
Mm-hmm.
what's really happening. But the fact is, it truly is, because the word is very clear about the fact that we are his children, and whether we fully recognize it or not, that the price has already been paid. And so
That's right.
I think those things are important to be able to understand how we come back from those levels where we were completely demoralized and have to come
Yeah.
back and make a comeback.
Yes. And it's not just in the physical realm where there's children that don't realize they have a father, a loving father somewhere.
Correct.
Right? Like, yes. So I want to ask you, we'll get back to our athletic character individual. So one of the things I used to do is produce sports, and we would produce this high school basketball tournament. It was It was an exceptional tournament, and many of the players would go on to university. And I'm thinking about this one player who went on to Gonzaga University for the next basketball season after he graduated. And he was quite well known and lauded for his abilities. The reason I bring him up is I was producing the post-game interview with this player, and I asked the question, pre-game versus post-game. You guys were the underdogs. Talk about what it was like getting onto the court, facing a team that everyone told you were an underdog. And he actually said he was honest, which was great. And I had gotten to know this player a little bit over the weekend. He said to me, Michael, we were scared of our opponents. We were scared they were going to beat us and knock us out of this tournament. And yet they were the ones that won. So can you talk about that sense of digging deep, not paying attention to fear, and executing what you know you're actually capable of?
I love the fact of that honesty, because I believe sometimes that honesty is what brings us to some level of greatness.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at that and you say, you know what, I'm a little freaked out here, and it's
Yes.
just like I know what I'm doing. I'm a great player, but right
Yeah.
now I'm having the butterflies. And I think when you go to that point, that there's a taking down of what you believe you are in the moment,
Yeah.
meaning that, because of course we're believers in the sense that when we think we're not enough, then we know that more is there. But when you think that you're above something, and then that's when, like I said, when we're talking about humility, we're talking about,
Yes.
the puffing up of our chest. There comes a calmness that to where you can be honest with your human self and say, okay, alone I'm not enough.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this player going
Yes.
out there, he played with a level of freedom that was able to guide him through that, and was,
Yeah.
after he missed a couple of shots, maybe dribbled a
Yep.
couple of ways around there, and next thing you know, he's like, you know what, it's not as scary as I thought it was. And so
Yeah.
then he probably started selling into himself, and then his confidence is up, and then boom, like you said, an underdog situation
That's right.
is what it comes down to.
Yeah, so I'll give you this. So that was interview one, because we were interviewing the winning team star player. And so our next interview, or the interview a little bit later in the post game, was with the star player of the team that everyone expected to win. And he was shorter in stature, also a very accomplished high school basketball player.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, like the maturity that comes from being in a sports program for years, it does bring a level of maturity and understanding that maybe people that aren't in sport don't have. That's my own opinion. I think it's true. But the reason I bring that up is we were talking to this forward for the basketball team, as I said, and I said to him, "Did you know we just talked with your main opponent on the other team?" And he actually told us that when in their pregame and when they came on, so they were warming up, they came on, they started, they had the tip off, they were afraid of your team. And now this is the team that lost, that was supposed to win, and his face just dropped. Like, man, we had that brass ring within reach, but our cockiness, whatever it was an interesting conversation with this player, because he realized, wow, we had it, but we let it slip through our fingers. So can you talk about how does that highly touted player or team that everyone expects to win, and then they're handed a defeat in the championship game, how did they continue, or what did they do next?
Oh man, you're talking about a whole lot of self-reflection, a lot of time in the film room. And it's
Hmm.
it's obviously a little bit different with when it's the final game, because you're
Yeah.
going into the off season. So you have, months or however long, whatever sport you're playing,
Yes.
that
Right.
time between the next time coming back to show up. And I can imagine those 48 hours. I know when we used to, I never took losses well.
Hmm.
Of course, I've never been on a team where it was just like we're just guaranteed to win this thing either. But
Yeah.
that there's a lot of self-reflection, and guys can take it one or two ways. They can go and say, I'm humbled now. Let me get back into the film room. Let me get down into the off season. Let me hit the weight room. Let me create some goals. Let me become a
Yes.
better leader. Let me humble myself. Let me go seek out counsel from others who can help me through this. Or they're gonna spiral out of control, probably,
Yep.
drink, smoke, and whatever vice is their deal, and just kind of just get out of control,
Yeah.
in the most uncomfortable way, and maybe come back into the next season worse off than they were before, or at the very least the same, and have learned nothing. Because I mean, I've seen
Right.
all these versions of athletes, and it's
Yeah.
just like, man, like you just literally just lost in the most insane fashion, and you're still cocky, like,
Yeah.
and it's interesting because you do get some of those guys. And Mike, I'll be honest with you, man. I've been doing this since my teenage years, and I can tell you right now, most of the greatest players I've ever seen did not have a career past college or even
Mm.
in college. Most of them flailed out within the first 2 years of college. And some
Yeah.
of them never made it at all. And it was unfortunate because you go back and look at their film, when they're freshmen, sophomores, juniors in high school, and you're just like, this is a can't miss guy.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, because if your mind and your heart aren't in the right place,
Mm.
eventually it will catch up with you.
Yes. Yes. So let's take this power forward whose face drops because he finds out, man, we had them in the corner. They were on the ropes and we missed our opportunity for greatness. So let's say a mom or an uncle has your book, gives it to this player. What do you hope that that player takes away from what you've been able to write and put together?
The number one thing I want them to understand is that the game is not about you. That you come into it with a level of humility, because the guys I was interviewing, most of those guys were looking out for the good of everybody else
Mm.
but themselves. And what was interesting is that I wasn't really into or knew much about the fullness of servant leadership, or what it was called at the time,
Mhm.
but that's what these guys were representing back then, that
Yeah.
I was just writing about. These guys who, they're top guys, and they're going to, the second and third string guy and saying, hey, let me help you be better. Let me
Mhm.
show you my work ethic, so that instead of being a 2-star guy, you're a 3-star guy. Instead of going
Yeah.
to, a D2 school, maybe we can get you in a lower Division 1 school. Let me get you on the platform of what I'm doing. Hey, I'm going out to run sprints, or you going to go out and run sprints. I'm going to go out and run with you doing these, so I can encourage you to be better for yourself. I've already done my workout, but
Right.
I'm going to take time to go make sure that you're better. I got an athlete I still keep in touch with today. His name is Russell Shepard. He was a top 10 guy in the country for many years. I ended up going to LSU, and he played in the league for, I think, 7 or 8
Wow.
years. This young man already had all the scholarships lined up. He probably had 50 plus offers. He
Mm.
would intentionally, in game, especially when the game was wrapped up, intentionally target guys who he knew were good, and make
Wow.
sure that they got the football, make sure that they can get the plays needed for their highlight video to be able to show
Wow.
to his coaches, to pass on to other coaches, and be like, hey, there's a guy over here. Maybe you all have been sleeping on him. He's a true sleeper. Maybe you should come check him out. And so he
Mm.
would do that, especially when it got later in the games, and the guys were still playing. And I just thought that was just so altruistic to do. But
Yeah.
that was his mindset. Andrew
Right.
Luck. Andrew Luck thought the same way.
Wow.
Everything, every time he got through post-game press conferences, you would rarely hear him say something about himself. He would praise everybody on the
Mm.
football team, down to the water boy, more than himself. And I
Wow.
just remember seeing those types of things, and that's the kind of things that are documented in there. So I think it's just a level of awareness and humility and
Mhm.
servant leadership that they'll get from that, when they turn the pages of the
Right.
book.
Yeah. And I was working on a series of broadcasts with one of the coaches for the New York Islanders, and he and I were having a meal with the rest of the some of the crew, I should say, not the rest of the crew, some of the crew after a tournament and a hockey game, and he and I were talking. He said, Michael, we can teach skating, we can teach stick handling, we can't teach teamwork. and
Yes.
and that is what he had hoped parents could get. So if you're talking to some parents right now and they think that their boy or girl has what it takes to make it to the big leagues in some sort of sport, but they know their boy or their girl's a little bit, not the best teammate. How can parents help their child athletes to actually put others first or be a good team member?
Man, that is a challenge because what needs to happen is extremely uncomfortable. For one, you have to
Mm,
let them absolutely take in 100% of their losses, and you have
mm,
to and you have to and you have to let them internalize that in a way that's not unhealthy, but in a way of self-reflection. What going back and looking at the blueprint, or going back and looking at the game plan, or going back and looking at your preparation and saying, where did I fall short in this? Because it is all mental. It's
yeah.
absolutely all mental, because I've seen some guys who was just like, wait a minute, he ended up making it, but the guy who's bigger,
Mm,
stronger, faster, had better training, didn't. And so I would say that parents, first of all, don't coddle them whatsoever. Let them feel all the pain. Trust me, they can endure it. Maybe remove the phone for a little bit, put some books in front of them, and just allow them to insulate themselves in the basics of the game. I will set up meetings with the coaching staff and say, "Hey, coach,
mm,
you know, I'm the leader of this team. It's on me. What can I do better?" And I don't think we stress that enough with young people, is to seek out counsel, right?
mhm.
Go and say, I apologize. I was wrong and I want to be better. What are three things that I can do better, starting right now, starting tomorrow, to make
Mm,
me a better player for the team,
yeah.
not for my stats? What can I do to provide better for the team? Right? We're always saying, what did I do wrong? What can I do to serve others?
Mm,
That's
yeah, that's
where that
powerful.
that's the for me, that's the difference, because you're taking yourself out of it and not looking
Hmm.
for your own gratification. You're looking for the wins for others, which we know how this works. When you help more people win, invariably things come back to you in a fashion
Yeah.
to where you are fulfilled. You may not be happy, but you will be
Hmm.
fulfilled
Yeah. I'll take fulfillment over happiness any day.
every day of the week.
Yeah.
Fulfill me daily. Absolutely,
Yes.
Mike, you're on to it.
Yes. That's right. Okay, so before I get to my next question, I got to talk to the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, we've got the comments section. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your input on maybe how you failed and got back up and you skinned your knee and you're like, "No, mom, you don't have to kiss this one. I got this." That takes a little maturity. So, be a little vulnerable. Let us know your life, how you realized, man, I got to find my bootstraps and pick myself up.
Yeah.
And so I want to ask you, um, uh, faith. Faith. I was going to say faith in football, but faith in sports and that character that's needed to succeed. You've mentioned that faith fuels your work. How does your spiritual foundation really shape your approach to motivation? And then how do you really get authenticity incorporated into your message?
Well, first and foremost, obviously, I begin every day, before even leaving my house, on my knees to pray, and I read a Bible plan to where I'm
Hmm.
taking in the Word every day. So nothing happens other than taking my phone out of the room and making my bed before I get
Yeah.
started, because that is a foundational pillar, for any Christ follower, is that you can't live out the faith unless you know
Yeah.
the work. You got to know how did all of this get started, and we know the Gospels will give us the entire blueprint of how that part of it puts everything together. And I think
Hmm.
that my faith, we go through some trials and tribulations through life, and when you have a faith that's the foundation rooted in the Word of God, I just believe that when you go out and you're dealing with these things, the pain is still there, the anxiousness is still
Uh-huh.
there, even the fear is still there. But you know that, I won't say it's part of a bigger picture of things, but you know that this is temporary. You know that this
Yeah.
too shall pass, and you know that in the end, even in your pain, that there's good that comes from it. And I think over time, especially going back to the time when I had the meltdown in my own guest bedroom,
Yeah.
I realized that was that my father dying and the different tragedies in my divorce and all of these things that happened. I can look at them now. I can look back at them now and see where that was a good in my life. So now
Hmm.
when unfortunate things happen today, I'm like, okay, this is absolutely terrible. But I know that you're here, that nothing you do, nothing that happens goes unneeded and unnoticed.
Yeah.
It is
Right.
all for the good. And it's tough to see that in the middle of the storm, but we know about the valley. We know when you're
Yeah.
down there without a flashlight or a match. And once
Yes.
you know that that is the true and living foundation in your life,
Mm-hmm.
you grin and bear it. You'll be painful. You may even
Yeah.
scream a few times, but you know that, if I just wake up another day, if I just give glory
Yes.
and honor, that the joy not only comes in the morning, but fulfillment and a
Yeah.
restoration and a transformation can happen once you put your faith in the right place. Once you
Mm-hmm.
get that part taken care of, the rest of the game of life will not become easier, but it will be more fulfilling, and there'll be a different type of feeling in you. It'll be more joy than this fleeting happiness,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
That's the way I see that.
Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com. That's good. I did see, probably a lot of people saw that that meme or that interview that was going around. I think it was with Stephen Colbert and Anderson Cooper, and one of them said something along the lines of, "Is it not like what punishment of God is not actually a blessing?" I'm probably missing that, or a gift, not a blessing. I think that's what he said, is what punishment of God does not actually turn out to be a gift. But the reason I bring that up is I wanted to ask you about your other book, Now What? Because that focuses on navigating those major life transitions. And so can you get into maybe the 5 steps that you outline, where people might typically find the most challenging to implement?
There is 5 steps, and we'll definitely fly through them as quickly as we can. But the bottom line is that book was written right at the height of the 2020, I guess we can call it turmoil, because it was so much going on. It was
Oh yeah.
it was political, it was spiritual, it was um medical, I mean
Yes.
mental. It was all sorts of things at once, and most of it was not for the good, but I can tell you a lot of good came from it, even me
Yeah.
joining a new church from coming out of that. But when I was looking and hearing all the conversation, and I'm just like, where is the accountability?
Hmm.
Everyone's saying you owe me this. Why? Because you aggressed me in this way. How? Well, just cuz. And it was just a lot of just finger
Mm-hmm.
pointing, but no real solutions, no real my life is my issue type of deal. And so I realized during that time I was having a conversation with a couple of friends of mine, and I was listening to their scenarios, and I'm going through, my coaching questions and asking them like, well, what about this? What about this? What? And it was like, Mike, every thing that I put together was a roadblock. There was a roadblock to a roadblock. And I'm just like, wow, how do I help this guy? Because
Mm-hmm.
every solution leads to something that can't go anywhere. And so I took all of those and sort of made a profile. And I said, if I run into this
Okay.
person, can I help them get out of this? And so I came up with 5 steps, and it's reflect, decide, plan, act, and seek.
Mm.
And so reflect, from the standpoint of that is that you don't know where you're going until you can admit where you are. And that is because you got to look in the mirror and own it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
you want to be like, it's my dad's fault. It's mom's fault. It's my teacher's fault. My coach didn't like me. And it's just like, I'll just use this. Shut up. It's
Yes.
you. Get over it. Because at the end of the day, all of those things could be correct. But you woke up with you, and you're the one in the mirror. So let's go ahead and get to something. So reflection is like, how did we get here? Why is there a big pile of dirty clothes on fire in my living room? Right?
Yes.
Then you have to decide, what do I want? Okay, life is not awesome. It's pretty bad. What do I want? So you have to decide. And so we start looking at different ways to be able to pull yourself out of this, but you have to make a decision and you have to lean on that decision. And of course, you reflect, you decide, and now you need to plan it out.
Mm-hmm.
How in the world do I get there? Who do I need? What resources do I need to have? What people do I need around me? Like all of the things. What is it going to cost? And all of those things. And of course, once you put all the plans together, now it's time to go to action. And what I
Yeah.
try to share with everybody is I know you have put together a full plan, and it will not be the plan as you go out and take action. It will be changed 47,000 times. You will fail at it. You will try something else. You'll be in roadblocks and all of those things. But you must take action because, as someone has shared with me a long time ago, God cannot steer a parked car. So,
Yeah.
and so we got to get on out there. And then, of course, the last one, and we spoke about it earlier a little bit, is to seek. You're going through all of these. You've reflected. You've decided. You've planned. You've taken action. Now you need to seek guidance. You need to be humble.
Mm-hmm.
You need to submit to what? To mentors, to patriarchs, to authority, to leaders, people who are in your industry, people who are already where you're trying to be. Sit down at their table and say, "Let's go out to lunch. Let's have a coffee."
Yeah.
Humble yourself and say, "Show me, give me three things, provide for me," and sit there and listen intently with the idea of knowing this person has the way that they've gone there, and you'll have
Right.
to tailor it to yourself. But we need to come with open hearts and saying, I need help. Because we
Mm-hmm.
don't use those. We don't come to no one and say we need help. We suffer in silence. And
Yeah.
people who have done that for decades. And it's time for us to get out of that. And so my book kind of takes you
Mm.
through all of those things, and each one of them has different strategies for all of those different things. We hit on some cultural things, we hit on some biblical things, we hit on a number of things. But all of them
Yeah.
will give you could choose the strategy you want to use from that and going
Yes.
through and being able to implement these things pretty quickly and get to moving.
Yeah. We sure hear a lot of adverse conversations about that word submit.
I use it a
it's
lot these days. I
it's it it's a powerful word because of what it actually gives the person who uses it. People will think that, oh, don't put that word submit on me. But yet, as you mentioned, the humility word, man, when somebody says, I understand the value of submission, and boy, does that ever change perspective.
It changed mine. Once I started diving into it more, once I started reading the word at a much deeper level and just not just reading just to be reading, but reading for
Mm-hmm.
understanding and wanting to be spoken to. And then you
Yeah.
read about some of the acts that were done, and you're just like, hold on. What did you do? How does this work? And so, like you said, whether it's submission in marriage, whether it's submission to,
Mm.
the workplace or submission
Yep.
in path, like that word has in the modern era, it has absolutely been put with a negative connotation on it. When in actuality,
Mm-hmm.
it's one of the most beautiful words. And if we had more of this, I guarantee
Yeah.
you, like 2/3 of our issues would be out of the door tomorrow if all of us was going out trying to lead with
Mm-hmm.
love, lead with submission, lead with forgiveness. I mean, could you imagine if we just 10% of the population just adopted that and just was like, I want to
Yes.
represent this? What would happen overnight?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I was this conversation makes me think of I there's a different places you go, you have to submit to authority. And so I was going to visit my cousin at Great Lakes Naval Base many years ago.
Mhm.
And of course we had the guard with the knife hands and standing at the gate, and you could tell this man had learned to submit to somebody. But because of that, I was willing to submit to him. And what a different life would have been for him if he hadn't learned submission in his occupation and where he was, and how different it would be for me if I was like, no, I ain't stopping at your gatehouse. I'm driving on. I'm going to, we're gonna go do something. Well, that I wouldn't get to do anything but sit if I refused the submission. Anyway, we're into the weeds. I'll try and rail us back in because I want to ask you about mental performance techniques. So you've been someone that you've coached athletes, Division I, NFL levels. What mental performance techniques have you found that translates the most effectively from elite sports to everyday life challenges?
I would say the most thing is absolute, obviously the writing of your goals, but just
Yeah.
understanding and just really looking and seeking to have the discipline to know what it takes. And the only way you can do that,
Mm-hmm.
we've been using the word submission, and it's going to come up again because
Yeah.
and really, we can use a word like honor. Like
Yes.
honor, because we know honor starts in the home with your
Love it.
father and mother, right?
Yep.
But you honor your principles, honor with your with all authority, even when you
Yes.
disagree with them. And I believe when we can shift that mindset, once we bring submission, honor, and forgiveness and grace, let's just take those four words and
Yes.
just roll it into any part of life. Once we put those words and we lead with that, with love, come on, man. There's not much
Yes.
we can't do because then you don't look in the mirror and say, yeah, look at me. No,
Right.
you're saying, no, whom can I serve?
Yeah.
Well, where is my impact? Right. And I put in a lot of my bios. I said, I try to make sure that there's three words I live by, and I want to make sure every action I'm doing represents service, gratitude, and impact.
Mm.
Right. And if I'm doing an action and one of those three or all three are not involved in it, then what am I doing? And so I want my guys to lead with that type of heart posture, to
Mm-hmm.
go out and say, yes, I'm a great player. I may be the best player, but how can I duplicate myself? How can I pour into someone else and make them better? How can my talents
Mm-hmm.
shine on the ways of not only my teammates down ballot to the person coming off the bench, but how can I hold my coach up? How can I represent my school better? How can I represent my community better? How can I represent my state, my country? All of these things. You notice none of these is like, what am I getting? That's the
Mm-hmm.
mindset that I want them to start with.
Yeah.
I want them to start with a servant leadership, with an altruistic mindset, with gratitude, with forgiveness. I was just sharing with one of my teens the other day, and we were working through some things we're working on. We're going on a mission trip pretty soon, and I had put him in charge of something. And what ended
Mm.
up happening is I sent three of them over there, but he took lead to help the
Wow.
other two get through the project and do it in an effective way. And I pulled him aside and I said, Jonathan, you were very good in not only doing the task, but leading others in the same way. I was like, I really
Mm.
would like to lean in and work with you closer on your leadership. And he's like, Mr. Maude, I would love that. And I was like, now do understand that there's going to be a little bit more pressure and that you're going to take more of the back seat than the front going forward.
Mm.
And I was like,
Yeah.
and there's more accountability here. And I was like, and there's going to be some days when you really don't feel like it. And he's like, I think I understand. And I was like, well, game on, let's do this. And
Yeah.
that's the level of how we're supposed to move about. So when I'm talking with my guys, Mike, that's foundational. We can't move on
Yeah.
to other things until we take care of this first.
That's
Meaning
right.
if you're not willing to look out for your fellow man, for your fellow teammate, for your
Mm-hmm.
coaches and your family, your brothers and sisters and all those around you, then I don't know what we're building on. We're building on sand, and then we're not building on solid rock. So that
Yeah.
would be first and foremost where I start with my training.
Awesome. That is good. So tell us how people can get in touch with you.
AhmardVital.com. Obviously, that's my website. And it's Ahmard Vital everywhere, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, any of those. There's no alias really.
Okay.
It's
Good.
just me. And so when they seek me, they can type that out, and everything that I'm involved with will populate and come up. And I'd love to hear from your audience in any ways.
Yeah.
You have some young people out there, maybe he's going through a season, and it could be,
That's great.
have them reach out to me. We'll look out for them.
That's good. So, seeing as how we're kind of hitting words that people don't like, we got to talk about daily discipline. Yeah, we're gonna tick all the boxes. We could talk about accountability next. I just did a whole conversation that's coming out with Richard Hunt about accountability. So we can cross that one off the list. But along with that submission, that fulfillment comes discipline. So as you clearly have some discipline and you practice what you preach, and let's maybe talk about that morning routine. How did you realize that you needed a foundation to your day before you got everything else started?
Well, I'll say that a lot of it had to do with the church that I'm a part of now, and the men in the
Hmm.
church. As obviously I work with the youth group there, and as I was starting to teach more, as I was starting to fellowship and pour into them more, I knew that I needed to be stronger in my own faith. And I knew that that was going
Huh.
to take some discipline. Obviously, I'm disciplined when it comes to working out, when it comes to
Yeah.
work and different things like that. But it's like, okay, from a faith standpoint, which is the foundation before any of the other things I just mentioned, I needed to have that right. And so when I got with the man I'm discipling under, he gave me sort of the blueprint when it came to the Bible plan, when
Hmm.
it came to my prayer posture in the morning, how he wanted me to go to God in prayer and I was just thinking on all of those different things. And so as I was going through those, my rotation is the same every morning. Wake up, unplug the phone, make my bed up, take the phone, put it in my kitchen or on my bar outside of my kitchen, come back in,
Yeah.
close the door, drop to my knees and pray in the same spot every morning. And when I get done with that, I go grab my Bible, which is already opened on my bed after the made up bed. I sit down there and I read my Bible passages for the day,
Hmm.
and I'm blessed. And I go in and take care of my other duties, getting dressed, bathroom duties, and all of those. But that that process to me is
Yeah.
important from the standpoint that like it's like would you go without eating intently? Now I'm not talking
Yeah.
about fasting. I'm talking about like just straight up just not eating.
Mm-hmm.
Would you not brush? Would you not shower? Like what we do as far as routine and discipline is the foundation of who we are and who we're becoming.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
once the light comes on and it's just like, hey, if you don't get this relationship right, the rest of them won't work.
Yeah.
That's when I knew that I was shifting towards the better. So even though things may be chaotic in my life and things might, spaz me out on occasion,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm dealing with some different types of pain, I know that my foundation is still rooted in something that is solid, and
Yeah.
we can build on that. The stuff on the top, it shifts anyway, but the
Right.
foundation must be in that, and that starts with the
Yes.
discipline of the word.
Yeah. And I made a mistake. I said Richard Hunt. It's actually Robert Hunt. Uh, so as we're moving through these very valuable words and how they impact our lives, we find out actually that we're doing this all for our own benefit as much as somebody else's. But how do we that motivation sustainability of people experiencing maybe their motivation feels like it's fleeting and they're trying to develop this new habit and they're trying to develop that new routine. Are there some techniques that you found work for you of being able to have sustainable motivation beyond that initial inspiration?
That's a great question. And a lot of people run into that when they go to seminars, conferences, and things like that, and they're
Mm-hmm.
all high. And it's just like, how do you sustain that? Uh, to me, it needs to be rooted in something like, okay, you want to be better at fill in blank here.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What's the purpose? Why do you want to be a better engineer? Why do you want to go back to school? Why do you want to write a book? Like, meaning what is the things that you love that goes well beyond accolades, finances, and fame, right?
Yeah.
Most people would say it's rooted in their family. Great place to start. Faith, family, those types of things. So, you know, let's say you have a couple of kids and you're just like, I want them to have the best life they've never had. Okay, well, you're
Mm-hmm.
giving of your life to make sure that they have a great life. So when that motivation is running out, tap back into the why. Tap back into
Yeah.
the what got you started. What was the love that drove
Mm-hmm.
you to do this? Like
Yeah.
like I like one of the things that drives me, especially when it comes to working with the youth, is I want to become the man I needed when I was 17 years old. And
Hmm.
so I'm driven to try to do things better and try to do things more effectively, to where when I go and teach them, I'm not teaching them from just reading some random book from somebody else. I'm teaching them from, I've tried this, I've failed at this, I've done this, and this is what I've achieved. So now you too can follow this pathway right here in your own
Hmm.
way. But this is what
Yeah.
works. And so I think sustainable motivation goes with the idea of not only clocking some wins, but understanding whom and why you're doing it in the first place.
Right. Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com. Yeah. Yeah. And that why really helps us sustain and keep going.
Yeah.
And wisdom is so valuable, that wisdom and maturity. And I wanted to ask you, just kind of abstractly, if you could instantly just kind of mind transfer like 3 specific mindset shifts to someone who's listening right now, where would you start with them, and what might those 3 little nuggets be where they could actually start to shift into some transformation?
Ah, man, that's a bold one. I would say for one, you are enough.
Yes.
You are fearful. You're not lacking anything to be able to be successful on this
Yeah.
earth
Yeah.
whatsoever. Your path is different. We all have different talents. Some got more talents than others. But that does not mean that you don't have absolute utility. You don't have
Hmm.
absolute value and absolute worth. That would be the first thing, is that you are more than enough, for sure. For two, stop trying to do things alone. Stop thinking that stop thinking that you have to figure it out. Because once you step out of that realm and realize that you can be a blessing by
Hmm.
actually asking for help, change your whole dynamic. Bring more
Yeah.
people in, because there are people out there who are seeking to do that for you. They're just waiting for the opportunity to do it. And think about it: when you do that, you're bringing more people in, so more people are invested. Not only can they encourage you, but they can also help you along the way when you're down, and then realize that, like, you need more, so more pouring into you. And lastly, again, just honor and respect. Honor and
Hmm.
respect for those who came before you. Honor and respect for those who brought you into this world. Honor and respect for those in authority. And just take yourself out of things sometimes. Just remove your biases, remove your insecurities, remove all of "what about me" from the
Yeah.
scenario, and walk into it saying, "Hey, let's just game on. Let's do and serve and love as many as possible." And then, lo and behold, so many things end up happening that we can't explain in the
Yeah.
physical realm, but we know that it absolutely is our Father
Yes.
blessing us. And it's usually not even from the people you're blessing. It's usually from some, I don't want to say unknown, because nothing's unknown, but to you it's unknown, because you're like,
Yes.
I don't know who you are, but thank you for, handing me these resources. That happened to me at Office Depot last year when I was buying notebooks for our mission team. This woman just saw me and she's like, "Are you a teacher?" And I was like, "Well, I teach in nonprofits and I do some work here and there." And she literally pulled out a stack of cash and handed it to me. She said, "I want to hand this to you so that you can
Wow.
to fulfill your ministry." Mind you, Mike, I never told her I was a minister. I
Yeah.
didn't tell her any of that. I just said, she asked, "Am I a teacher?"
Yes.
I mean, she said, "I want to give this to you for your ministry." And I'm just like,
Wow.
Lord, okay. And so I ran out to the car. I called my guy and I said, "What do you want me to do with this?" Like, I've been handed money. I was kind of in a tough financial spot, but I said, "I want to do right by what God did through this woman." And he said,
Yeah.
"Well," he said, since she said, for the ministry, take the tithes of the money and then use the money and go buy your team something." And so I did. I went and bought them snack packs for the plane ride over to our mission trip. And so they each
Wow.
got their own individual bag full of all the goodies they wanted. And so that's what I
Wow.
did with the money. But that's what I think happens when when we remove ourselves and what's in it for us and just lead with your heart, and it'll take you places.
Yes. Well, you definitely stacked the wood, poured the diesel, and lit the match with that last answer. That was great. And, that idea of more than enough, when you realize that you're fearfully and wonderfully made and you're not like an accident of biological evolution, it changes the perspective of who we really are and the potential that we really have to impact, to walk over and give somebody a small stack of cash in the office supply store. You never know who you're going to meet. And ladies and gentlemen, what a conversation. Am I right? I mean, you need to connect with this good man who has a heart to see other people succeed. And so I want to remind you of Ahmard's great website. He's got some good stuff on social media, but he's got resources that will help you on your own journey, and you can access these valuable tools at ahmardvital.com. So get over there, get some resources, connect with this good man who's got a good heart. And I've got to say, Ahmard, thank you so much for joining us today.
Mike, thank you for having me on. I'm grateful and blessed to be part of your show and to present to your audience.
Oh yeah, the blessing is mine for sure. That was a good one. I love talking about the uncomfortable words because they just have so much value for us. And boy, I know you and I could talk for hours. I know it. And I was looking at your purple shirt and I was thinking about how teams have colors for their jerseys. And sometimes people try and separate us into colors. Your team red, your team blue, your team orange. And you know what? We never talk to team green because we all know about those guys and how bad they smell. That envy team. But Ahmard, once again, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great. What a great conversation. Viewers, thank you. Listeners, thank you for being here. We appreciate you joining in on this conversation. And if you haven't already, please help the show grow with a like, a share, and a subscribe. We love those little buttons that show up on the screen. So thanks for hitting them. One more thing. If you could leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast player, we would appreciate that very much. And of course, thanks to those that have ventured over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast. We appreciate all levels of support and participation here at the 5am podcast. Please seize your day, enjoy those sunrises and sunsets and all those adventures in between. I'm Michael Klassen. Thanks for watching the show. Just a reminder that you can get all of our resources, other episodes, and read our blog posts at 5ampodcast.com.